The meal began like countless others had. Bread was shared, stew was swallowed, and nothing seemed wrong until stomachs tightened and bodies betrayed them. One after another the family fell, shaking hard, unable to control limbs or breath. Panic followed symptoms that made no sense for ordinary sickness. The fits came fast. Vomiting joined the spasms. A child stopped responding. Neighbours and attendants searched for something spoiled, something bitter, anything that warned of danger. They found only a faint dusting of white powder where food had been handled, dull and tasteless, easy to miss. It looked harmless, like flour or salt. Then it disappeared back into routine, wiped away, swept up and forgotten. As the 1700s opened, Europeans handled powerful substances as everyday goods. Apothecaries stocked cures and killers side by side. In many homes, the same cupboard held medicine for fever and powders that ended life. That closeness mattered because names and uses overlapped. A dose depended on habit, not warning labels. When something went wrong, it looked like ordinary sickness. Suspicion stayed quiet because the ingredients felt familiar. Then, cities changed the equation. Growing trade networks moved chemicals through markets, ports, and shop counters with speed. Materials once rare became easy purchases. Lethal options spread outward, not as contraband, but as commerce. As trade widened, arsenic moved from rare threat to reachable purchase. It sat in shops as rat poison, pest powder, even medicine. It carried no strong smell or taste. That made it easy to hide in meals. People began to notice a pattern. Sudden stomach pain, violent vomiting, and death appeared after ordinary food. Families argued, neighbours whispered, and suspicion settled on whoever served the table. Arsenic did not announce itself. It waited. Courtrooms filled with claims that looked impossible to prove. A death could resemble illness, and the powder could disappear into soup or wine. Rumours gave it a new name, the inheritance powder, and the label spread faster than facts. By mid-century, a poisoning case still began with what people could see. Doctors weighed vomiting, cramps, and sudden collapse, then compared them to fevers or bad food. The same signs fit many causes, and certainty stayed out of reach. When death followed, attention shifted to the body. Autopsies looked for burned stomach lining, darkened organs, strange smells. But medicine still argued over explanations, corrupted humours, irritated nerves, hidden inflammation. One report contradicted the next, and blame kept drifting. That confusion pushed a harder demand. Investigators began asking not just what the victim felt, but what substance lay inside them. Suspicion no longer satisfied a court. If poison killed, it had to be found, named, and shown by chemistry. Chemists pushed beyond guesswork and tried to make poison visible. They mixed stomach contents with acids and salts, then watched for a change of colour or a new smell. The problem was simple. The chemicals varied and results drifted. One investigator swore a faint yellow stain meant arsenic. Another called it spoiled food or dirty glass. Heat sometimes produced a metallic film, but soot and kitchen minerals mimicked it. The same sample could condemn a suspect in one town and clear them in another. Still, courts began treating these shaky trials as hard proof. Demonstrations happened in public view, with juries watching mixtures turn cloudy or dark. A single reaction, repeated with confidence, started outweighing witness stories, and verdicts leaned on chemistry's fragile promise. As reports of sudden illness multiplied, fear spread faster than proof. Neighbours watched who served the soup, who mixed the tonics, who cleared the plates. Death no longer looked like fate. It looked like someone nearby decided. Suspicion settled on the people with the least power. Servants touched every pot and cup, yet had no voice when blame rose. Wives who controlled household remedies became targets too. Inquiries turned personal, and old grudges became evidence. Soon, a mere accusation did damage. Households dismissed staff, families broke apart, and the poor were treated as naturally capable of poisoning. Trials promised certainty but rarely delivered it. Poisoning became a social panic that punished the innocent. Late in the century, danger stopped hiding only in bottles and powders meant for medicine. Poisons slipped into ordinary goods. Bright pigments carried toxic metals, cosmetics borrowed the same ingredients, and vermin killers sat in cupboards as routine purchases. That change blurred intention. A sickness no longer proved a plot. A child touched a coloured paste. A worker handled dyes. A face powder dusted skin each morning, and the body absorbed small amounts without anyone noticing. The damage unfolded slowly. Instead of one violent collapse, people weakened over months, stomach pain, headaches, shaking hands, failing memory. It resembled age or hard living. Poisoning became something that could hide inside normal decline. As the 1800s began, chemists pulled powerful alkaloids out of plants and named them, purified them, and measured them. Strychnine moved from a laboratory curiosity into bottles behind pharmacy counters, now sold with a scientific label. That change sounded like progress, but it widened opportunity. A poison that had once been hidden inside a crude plant could now be bought as a clean, strong dose. Scandals followed because a tiny amount could kill. The new danger came from speed and scale. Alkaloids acted fast, in small quantities, and left fewer obvious traces. Illness looked sudden and confusing, and investigators struggled to prove what happened or who delivered it. In the 1830s, arsenic stopped being a ghost in the courtroom. Chemists developed tests that worked more reliably and left clearer results. For the first time, investigators trusted that a body could still hold proof even years later. That mattered because burial no longer ended a case. If a death had seemed natural, suspicion could return when patterns appeared in a family or a village. Graves opened, organs were examined, and chemistry aimed to separate rumour from evidence. When arsenic appeared in those remains, it changed everything. Old verdicts looked weak, and earlier escapes looked less secure. Courts began to treat chemical findings as a kind of witness, and justice reached backward to reclaim forgotten victims. By the late 1800s, poisons stopped belonging only to murderers and apothecaries. They travelled through factories, dyes, pesticides and medicines, then into kitchens and nurseries. Harm followed ordinary work, and victims often never knew what hit them. Courts leaned harder on forensic chemistry, and experts promised clear answers from organs, stains, and powders. Yet each new test also created new fights. Defense lawyers challenged methods, juries hesitated, and a single result rarely ended suspicion. Some cases became famous because science, newspapers, and rumour all collided. Others faded because exposure looked like illness, records stayed thin, and families stayed silent. Even with better proof, doubt lingered, and many poisonings passed unnamed into history.